The radio program. This is Laura Tarcia. Greg and I are discussing immigration and the North American Free Trade Agreement, opportunities and misunderstandings, with our visitors Betsy Monterosa and Elizabeth Long. It's clear now? That's wonderful. I can hear better too now. You're always right. I know I have to say that once per program. We'll invite a mediator.
Well, Greg, I want to thank you for the invitation to the program Mediation Station. I am here also with Laura and Elizabeth. I am very happy to have the opportunity to be here today, and also to the audience of Radio Voices Latinas that are basically on listening to us. And with regards to my professional backgrounds, and I obtained in the year of 1995, for 2 years, I have a legal assistant diploma. And after I obtained my legal assistant diploma, I also was doing some Spanish translations, some bookkeeping, some taxes. I also have my credentials as a pro advisor in QuickBooks Online certifications. Because of a personal issue in my life back in the year of 2007, I basically stopped some of my career goals. I went back to school because I couldn't, back in 2007, I was not able to renew my paralegal license due to this personal matter that my family experienced back then. When I decided to go back and do start working as a paralegal, I have to redo all the courses back again. So I went back to school in the year of 2013. I got my paralegal diploma in the year of 2014. I also studied immigration consultancy, which I do have a certificate back in 2014 and then in 2015. Presently, I'm a licensed paralegal, and I am happy to be the professional that I become. Yes. 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 Yes, yes. Yes, he's my father. Helping today, volunteering for
Thank you,
us.
Father.
Thank you very much. It's such a pleasure to be here today. So, you want to know about my background? I have a lot of letters after my name. It's kind of like the alphabet afterwards. Let's see. Well, I'm from Newfoundland myself. So I did my undergraduate degree in psychology at Memorial University in Newfoundland. And then I went to law school at U of T, University of Toronto. And I started practicing back in the day. It's been let's just say it was over a decade now. I first started practicing with a few Bay Street law firms. I was doing some corporate immigration law. But then it got a little bit boring, and I thought, you know what, I want to do something really interesting. And, interesting may not be always profitable, but I thought, you know what, I wanted to do that. So I decided to go out on my own, and I formed a law firm almost 10 years ago with a partner of mine. And our law firm is called Law Mangoji. And so I've been practicing there. I also, a few years ago, I was a little bit bored, so I decided to get a master's I was really interested in this topic about how foreign workers are treated by our employment law system and by because of their immigration status. And so that's what I did some studying on. So I got my LLM through Osgoode Hall, York University. And so now I'm probably one of the youngest lawyers. There's around 50 of us who are recognized by the Law Society of Upper Canada as certified specialists in immigration law. Yeah.
So. I mean, it sounds like we're surrounded by very rich women, so it feels really good for me, I have to say. I'm just going to delve in right into the topic today, so I'm mindful of our limited time and the depth of this topic. One of our major intentions and purposes on Mediation Station is to educate and inform our community with information that they may not be aware of. Why is this type of approach important to each of you?
Well, in immigration, there is so much information out there that may be correct, but a lot of it is not. And the information that you have for immigration affects your life to such a degree. And, it is such a responsibility. I come from an immigrant family myself, and I know, how it affected my family, how it affects our clients when someone doesn't have the correct information and they go down the wrong path. And that's one of the reasons we're here today, is to really tell our listeners about some of the routes that they can take and try to prevent them from going through some of the pitfalls of the immigration system.
Well, throughout my experience as an immigration agent from one of the law firms back in the year of 1998, I was able to be very close connected with cases, immigration cases, which it was impacted my life to see sometimes that whenever a case came to our hands, there was not much to be done. So that's one of the things that took me to learn more, study more, and also be able to help my community more into, as Elizabeth say, inform people, like provide legal information. This is of course not an advice. Each case is unique, which of course needs to look for the proper legal advisor to get more. But yes, this was an experience that working with in the immigration, it's not like working with products or any other, like, money. We're talking about people's life, their destiny. And just one little mistake that could be made in an application or through litigation could cause them to go back where they don't want it. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. The immigration system is so complicated that each individual case is different. I often have clients come to me and they say, well, my friend did it this way, and therefore it should apply to me. But their friends come from different circumstances, and and the laws change all the time as well. So what we tell people today is true today, but who knows what's going to happen in a few days. We have our websites and etc. to try to update people, but still there is nothing like having a professional there as their lawyer telling them what should happen in their case.
Free Trade Agreement, Opportunities and Misunderstandings, with our visitors, Betsy Monterosa and Elizabeth Long. So one of our, the focus of our conversation today is regarding what is known the North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA for short. What is it meant by that?
So NAFTA is an agreement. It's about trade, all sorts of areas of trade between the United States, Canada, and Mexico. What we really wanted to concentrate on today is talking about the labor aspect of NAFTA, because the labor aspect covers work permits, which are really important with regard to immigration. There are a lot of advantages under NAFTA for work permits for people from Mexico and U.S. to come to Canada. There's also similar agreements between Canada and Peru, Canada, Chile, and Colombia as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so, this is not really well known, and that's what we wanted to tell everybody about today.
Okay.
Certainly, I mean, we always want to find the best route, the easiest route, the shortest route for people to come. And under NAFTA, the work permits, they're some of the easiest ones to come. But when you don't know about it, sometimes you go the wrong way, you go the hard way.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
And what is currently known about, what do people think when they think of NAFTA?
Some of the things that people think when they hear about NAFTA is that the negative part is that they're losing their jobs. Immigrants will take over their jobs. Businesses will lose because they will leave the country to go to other countries. There are so many, I would say, misinformation about what NAFTA is. Well, NAFTA, it's an agreement, and specifically with regards to the movements of migration of people between those three countries, and also similar international agreements that in a way they use the NAFTA, as Elizabeth mentioned, would be Peru, Colombia, and Chile.
Mm-hmm. So how does NAFTA connect with the migration of people to other countries?
Well, NAFTA has two parts with regard to immigration. One of the most important ones is NAFTA and all of these other free trade agreements, they have something for professionals to come to Canada. There's a list of, I don't even know how many different kind of professionals. For example, scientists, engineers, academics, all sorts of technologists, etc., to management consultants who can get a work permit if they have that job offer in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a special advantage that is provided only to those countries with the free trade agreements.
Mm-hmm. This list, just for my curiosity, does it change? I mean, is it based on what that particular country needs at a certain point in time?
So the different free trade agreements have slightly different professions on them, but the professions are set and they are agreed upon by the countries, so they don't actually change.
Okay.
So for example, if we as Canadians wanted to go to the US or Mexico, it's already agreed upon. Like as a lawyer, that's on the professions list. So if I wanted to go to the US, I have the right to get a work permit to go to the US.
Under the NAFTA?
Yes, under NAFTA as well. Yeah.
That's very important.
Well, it's just not very known by people that they can come and get a work permit. under NAFTA. For example, a few years ago, we had a lot of Mexican citizens come to Canada, and some of them were engineers, and some of them were technologists or lawyers, and they were making refugee claims, and they were getting denied and sent back, right? Now, if they had known about the NAFTA, and I spoke with a lot of people, and I even spoke with some lawyers who didn't even know about this, right? But if they had known, they could have stayed here, had their work permits, and had their permanent residence by now, by coming through this route.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah. Because NAFTA was not being broadly advertised about the benefits. Mexican people has on how didn't know how to apply under NAFTA in some situations. So people may have the wrong impression that by entering Canada and to stay in Canada, the only way was to apply for refugee status, which in the long run may hurt them more than benefit them. That's why we encourage people to look for legal advice prior to doing a refugee application, because you may qualify for any other immigration program rather than going through the difficult process of applying for refugee status. One of the things that Liz and I were talking about was that there was no way to come back. Sometimes when people apply for refugee status, there is no way to come back to the temporary status under NAFTA, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they will not qualify for a work permit in the future, and some other ministers permit to come back, and things like that.
Yeah.
More?
So, in immigration law, we have several routes. Under the NAFTA work permits, the study permits, they come under the economic route. And the work permits are temporary status. So when you are applying for temporary status, one of the most important things the officer looks at is whether or not he believes that you would leave Canada when you are supposed to leave Canada, because it is temporary status. If a person applies for refugee status, or makes a refugee claim, even if that person wants to withdraw the refugee claim afterwards, or we've even had people who went to the immigration office, told them they wanted to make a refugee claim, and didn't go through with it, but it's on their record. That is a really black mark on their record, which says, well, this person is afraid to go back. Then I'm not going to issue a work permit that gives them status.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of people confuse the refugee work permit with a work permit that gives them temporary status. Refugee claimants can get work permits, but it will say on the work permit that it does not grant temporary status. That means that they don't have the right to stay in Canada and work if their claim is denied. They have 30 days to leave the country, and if they don't, they need special minister's permission to come back. That is very different from a work permit that's issued under the economic categories like NAFTA, where it gives them the right to stay in Canada and work until the work permit expires. And under NAFTA, if they continue to have those job offers, they can continue to renew. There is no limit to the amount of time that they can continue to renew those work permits.
Well, it's more about information too, right? I mean, it's about obtaining that accurate information, because that black mark necessarily may not be there because that person genuinely did not want to apply for refugee status. So being denied doesn't necessarily mean that that's a black mark. Being denied, it's unfortunately a limitation that individual has sort of placed around him or herself. Yes.
So in immigration, there's such a hierarchy of applications that the government likes and the applications that they don't like. The government likes people who are going to bring economic benefits to Canada. like under NAFTA, professionals, it's recognized we need these people to come and work in Canada. With regard to the refugee system, that is probably one of the things that the government actually wants to prevent. One of the reasons why the visas were imposed on Mexican citizens was because there was a lot of Mexican citizens who were filing refugee claims. And so the government imposed visa requirements because they didn't want so many people applying for refugee claims in Canada. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so since 2005, the number of Mexican refugee claims was almost tripled from about 3,400 with over 5,500 claims received up to June 30, 2009, compared with approximately 3,700 for the same period in 2008. So refugee claims are assessed by the Immigration and Refugee Board, an independent administrative tribunal. In 2008, the IRB reviewed and completed 5,654 Mexican refugee claims, of which 606 were accepted. This represents an overall acceptance rate of 11% for Mexican refugee claims. In 2009, the number of claims has increased while acceptance rate has decreased further still. And as Lee said, this is one of the main reasons why it was imposed again a visa for Mexican people to come to Canada. And well, now they are opening the borders back again. So it's December 1st, 2016. And of course, we encourage people to look for legal advice prior to making a refugee claim. This is not to discourage people that genuinely have a refugee case neither, right? If people do have a basis, fear for their life, or there is like a specific case that they think they fear of persecution based on race, religion, political opinion, nationality, or membership in a particular social group, such as women or people of a particular sexual orientation, and of persons in need of protections whose removal to their home country or countries where they normally live would subject them personally to a danger of torture, a risk of their life, or a risk of cruel and unusual treatment or punishment, to, of course, file an application to the refugee process. But before, if they do have other qualifications, that they may apply under Nafta or any other international agreement, will look for legal advice.
Welcome back to the radio program. This is Laura Garcia. Greg and I are discussing immigration and the North American Free Trade Agreement, opportunities and misunderstandings, with our visitors Betsy Monterosa and Elizabeth Long. So we discussed so far the necessity of information, the public, the community to be properly informed when it comes to NAFTA and refugee claims, and why particular routes are important for them to know before their application. Do you have any context that our listeners may be able to relate to, maybe? So,
Sure.
Go ahead.
Oh, of course. We do have some cases and areas. Maria is an engineer who's working in Mexico City. She's 32 years old, speaks fluent English, has a bachelor's degree, and some savings. She wants to leave her husband, who is abusive, and start a new life in Canada.
Okay, so let's look at it with regard to short-term and long-term goals. She wants to leave right away, I'm assuming. Now, as an engineer, that is one of the professions under NAFTA where she could come to Canada. If she has a job offer for her to work as an engineer, we could get her a work permit. I could prepare and package, and she could even get it at the border. Okay, especially if no visas are required now for Mexican citizens. Now, that's for her to actually have a job offer. One of the things she could do is come to Canada first as a visitor, look around for a job, and see if someone would be able to hire her. Okay, well, what if she can't find a job? What can she do then? Well, one of the things that I might advise her to do is look to study, maybe do a master's. In Ontario, if you have a master's degree from Ontario, she would be able to apply for permanent residence without even a job offer when she graduates. So that's a really good thing for her to do, and it's a very easy way for her to get permanent residence. While she's working, she can work part-time, 20 hours a week, full-time on campus, 20 hours a week off campus. When she graduates, she would be able to be entitled to up to 3 years of an open work permit, which she can work as well while waiting for her permanent residence. She might even qualify right now for permanent residence under the express entry category. I would have to look at her English levels and have her do an English exam, but she might even be it allows trades as well. So cooks and chefs can get work permits. Under Nafta, you can't. Nafta is more professional occupations, but trades can come through Peru. Now, what's interesting about Jorge is he already has a job offer. There's a lot of need for cooks and chefs in Toronto. So we could get him a work permit as well. Under the Peru agreement for that. Now, a lot of cooks and chefs come from a lot of other countries, and we are also able to get a labor market impact assessment from the employer as well. That would give him additional points for his permanent residence as well. Permanent residence, though, I would really need to see if he has the English levels to really qualify and be competitive for permanent residence. But at least we can get him these work permits, and if we get him a work permit under the Peru Free Trade Agreement, there is no limit to the number of times we can extend the work permits.
Does Jorge has to leave the country?
If he is in Canada legally, which means he still has his visitor status, we can continue his visitor status and apply from within the while he's in the country. We can apply. I might even send him to the border and do what we call flag polling. Just go around the flag and come back and apply at the border.
What if he doesn't have a status?
Okay, if he doesn't have status, then that is a much longer time question that we would need a lot more time to talk about it. But that is certainly going to be an issue if he doesn't have status. So it's really important to maintain that status in Canada. So our website is LM as in Mary Law Group, LAWGROUP.com, and we have newsletters on there. And if you want to contact me, you can contact me at 416-548-9089.
Well, my contact is easy. Facebook, Bexy Monterosa, or 416-206-2337. You will just do a search, Facebook or the internet, and you will get my contact information.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.